Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between Brian Wood and Rubo. This was played in Team Event 53 in the third round. Let's have a look. We've got nearly a 300-point rating difference. Usually things don't happen like that in the lower classes because they're closer in strength. But anyway, could be that someone's league rating is higher or lower than their ICC rating, so I'm not going to worry about it. And the Budapest defense, gosh, this is such an interesting opening. I tried it once or twice myself. I didn't have any luck with it, and I never really studied it. It seems to me that logically, white should come out of it okay, but yet I've seen countless games where black just gets this wonderful position out of it and ends up with some really nice attacking games. So, I don't know, it never just really struck me as something I wanted to pursue, although certainly I'm not going to criticize it. If you're an aficionado of aggressive openings, this is the opening for you with black, because you're going to get all kinds of counterplay with this opening. Instead of having to play a slow defensive system with Queen's Gambit declined, or Nimzo, or Queen's Indian, or King's Indian, you can go right for the jugular starting with your second move. And white's going to have to be prepared to meet it and have a satisfactory line. And in this game, white kind of had okay play, and we'll get to that when we see it. So, like I say, I really don't know all the theory on this, and that's not important. For those that haven't seen this old trick, well, it doesn't work in this position. I was saying there's similar positions, like if white plays knight d2, that black has this clever move, knight e3, but here the queen has a way out. But you can see you can't take the knight because there's a little mate down there on h4. So this is just one of the themes in Budapest-related positions that can come up. Okay, so immediately black is threatening to take the pawn on e5 back that he's gambited. At the same time, he's also planning bishop c5, hitting f2. Okay, so what's white do? Okay, this is perfectly logical. Defends the pawn, develops a piece, and then here's the move I suggested, and now white has to deal with the threat on his f2 square. So e3 seems to be a forced move. Now how does black continue? Okay, I've already played through the game, I'm not going to say it, but let's just continue. Look at some candidate moves here. Okay, black can castle, nothing wrong with developing. Can also think about regaining the pawn. How do we do that? Well, we've got to put another attacker on it. Okay, that can be done in a couple of ways: queen e7 or knight c6. And each one of those candidate moves is reasonable. If black castles, white might play h3 and just drive the knight away, although the knight will get back into play soon enough. And just because white's a pawn ahead doesn't mean he's winning. Black will have his say here as he continues to get his pieces out. And so there, black plays knight c6. Like I say, he's at least trying to get his sacrificed pawn back. And white continues on with his development, and black takes the pawn. And probably nothing wrong with exchanging pieces here. It does improve the position of the black knights, and it got rid of a useful defender that white had. So let's just consider the alternatives here for a second. Okay, instead of taking, why not let black take on f3? And what can white do instead? Well, if he castles, that's fine. Okay, castles, and then maybe black does play knight takes knight and bishop takes. Now, is black going to try knight e5? Well, if anything, white can just develop and let black have the bishop pair. Of course, he can save the bishop, but sometimes it's just good to develop and let the opponent have that little tiny advantage, because development will trump everything. And now look at this. White's castled. He's got a knight out. He's got a queen out. He's certainly not losing this. For black to win this, he's got to get trade everything down and win the bishop versus knight ending. And that's a long way away. And with white being active, white's going to have a say here. So sometimes it's okay just to develop your pieces and let the other guy have the bishop pair. And with a 300 rating point disadvantage, white should be happy with the draw. So I'm not saying this draws, but white's okay here. He's got some potential. He can fianchetto the bishop on b2 and have maybe some pressure down the long diagonal. He can play e4 and take a share of this, take a stake in the center, and bring the bishop into play on that diagonal. So white definitely has some potential here. So taking with the knight, I think, is a minor concession, because now we've reached a position where black took the knight and then white saved his bishop, right? Let's see the difference. Let me go over that again. I think it's kind of critical. Okay, what white could do is castle. Let's keep these positions in mind, okay? Now, knight takes, bishop takes, knight here, and bishop back. Now it's black's move, right? Right? Okay. Now let's go back and see what happened. Okay, knight takes, and now castles, and once again it's black's move, right? So the difference is, what white could have done is what I suggested. Just castle. And if black wants to trade, and there's nothing making him trade, now, like as I was saying, knight c3, and if he takes the bishop, we suddenly have 2 extra pieces out. We've given up the bishop pair and got a nice lead in development. Okay? So compare and contrast the positions, and I think it makes a big difference. And white should be okay here. But anyway, let's continue on with the game. And once again, white's probably still okay here, and he has kept his bishop. What are his ideas here? Well, first off, it's black's move, so he castles. Now, what kind of plan can white do? Well, first off, we got to deal with those guys I just put the arrow on. None of them are developed. They're all on the queen side. Okay? For the moment, black is almost in the same boat. He does have his knight out, but the disadvantage black has is that the queen bishop can't move yet. Black's going to have to move a pawn before that can come out. So both sides are several moves away from completing their development. Now, what can white do here? Well, if white wants to get funny, he can play f4 and just chase the knight away, but I'm not sure if that's wise, because it just creates a weakness on e3. Probably the simplest move here for white is to maybe play knight d2 with the idea of putting it on f3, and then we can develop the bishop on c1 either by b2 or d2 to c3, or maybe eventually an e4 and bring it out to f4 or something. So let's see what white does. Okay, knight c3, nothing wrong with it. Knight d2 was an alternative, but this is fine too. It does maybe plan to go to e4 with tempo on the bishop. Okay, so now black's got to get his queen side developed. Does he take steps in that way? Well, a5 just seems a little odd, because it doesn't really develop the queen side unless black has plans of what we call a rook lift. The idea is rook to a6 and then swing it over somewhere. We don't know where yet, but somewhere along the third rank. And in a way, that can be a little quicker than stopping to move the pawn, getting the queen out, getting the bishop out, putting the rook on a8 to e8, and then getting it up to the third rank. So, but white should be fine here still. He just needs to continue his development, and he's getting closer. He got the knight out. Okay, got the queen out. That's good. Now we just got to deal with the bishop and the rook, and we're set. And son of a gun, there it is, rook a6. So it's a good strategy. I don't see it often enough. I know a lot of people that are really fond of this rook lift, and I'm glad that more people have done it. Rubo, good job. Because, like I say, the whole objective is to attempt to bring the rook into play a little quicker. I've seen some people do it prepare for it as early as the second move. If they play e4 and they meet a Sicilian defense, they play a4. And a4 is often used against the Sicilian defense, but the long-term objective is to get the rook to a3 and swing it over. And black can't menace that rook. And here you'll see why. Black can't menace that rook with his bishop, because here, see that pawn on c4? Just imagine colors reversed. That's the Sicilian pawn, right? And it's blocking the king's bishop from attacking that rook on h6, okay? And I know one person that he would play a4 in the second move, then rook, follow up with rook e3, a3, then rook e3, and if his rook got attacked, he'd just drop it back to e2 and sit there with it. And it would be ready to come into play about 10-15 moves down the line when his kingside attack got started. So, okay, but white's still okay. White doesn't really have a problem here. Okay, and this is fine. It's one of the suggestions I made to get the queen side developed. You can always fiend kettle the bishop, and then black just develops another piece. He's still got this guy back there, and the queen isn't out yet. So if anything, white could be slightly better here simply because he's almost got his rook, his development completed. Just rook AD1 and everything's out. Black has to, black needs 3 moves to get everything of his out. Okay, so rook H6, and obviously he's eyeballing H2, and this is one of the reasons why I said maybe white wanted to play knight D2 so it could go to F3 and help out in defending the king side. Although black could rid that knight with knight takes F3, that's one less piece that black could be attacking white with. So anyway, what's white do? Like I say, I think the best move, the most logical move, is to play rook AD1. An alternative candidate move would be knight E4, which plans to transfer the knight to the king side, or at least keep him there for now for some assistance. But let's see what white does. Okay, knight E4, and like I say, I probably rook AD1 would have been better. And I think here black makes a wise choice. He goes and threatens mate, and that makes white stop and deal with it. And really, there's only one move really to stop it. And now all of a sudden the black position looks very, very, very dangerous. White's weakened his king side a little bit, and what just seems to be looming, and it's not there yet, it just seems to be looming, this bishop sacrifice down here on H3. But to do that, black's got to move his pawn. And for the moment, black has a bishop hanging on C5, so he's got to be careful. If he plays D5 here, attacking the knight, he has to justify that he has enough compensation if white just takes the knight. So black finds a decent move here, D6. And this is the critical stage of the game where everything changes. And I'll just show you, well, I won't show you what happened. I'll show you what white should have done. The best way to play this, and you see that sacrifice is coming. The best way to play it is just a little brute force first. First you take this guy, okay? That forces black to pretty much take back here. I'm not going to analyze the sacrifice. You guys can do that on your own. And then take this out. And now then the key is to bring this rook somewhere over to this side of the board, probably D1. The purpose being it's on an open file and may give a checkmate if black gives up control. But the point is, if now the sacrifice comes, white's king can run, and let's see, we got to be careful here. Can it run? What am I doing? I looked at this earlier and I saw that white escaped this, but the king can't even move to F1. I saw it running. What was I looking at? Dang it. I know I've done this right. I hate to cheat and turn an engine on and see what's wrong with it, but because I know I worked something out that would just end this. Okay, you can take this, but I had the king running. How did I have the king running? Okay, that just threatens mate. Period. And yeah, it's what was I looking at? Oh, duh! You can't take on there because you have this. Black has this. White has this recourse. Okay, so that explains why. Okay, so what black does is he checks. He can't play queen takes H3. He has to check or spend a tempo clearing his back rank. So when he checks, then the white king's running out. Okay, now the king gets to safety, and black just doesn't have enough here. Even though he's got some aggressive checks here for a minute or two, they just run out. And then, believe it or not, the black king is, or the white king is safe. Black can't get at it, and black's now a piece ahead. And although white has, or white's a piece ahead, and black has a couple pawns for it, but that's not probably enough. So this would have worked as a resource for a defense for white. Instead, he went about it the wrong way. he took here. Maybe he's hoping, it's wishful chess, impulsive chess, hoping for pawn takes. But unfortunately, he's reversed the order of things, and he doesn't even have time for knight takes c5, because now bishop takes h3 is just crushing, and White doesn't have the resources he did before. The main reason, he hasn't had time to get this rook out of the way. So what else could White have done? His knight on e4 is hanging. He has to deal with it. That's why he had to take the bishop first, then take the knight, and then he's fine. But anyway, let's just show you what happened. He played knight g3, and then on bishop takes h3, White resigned, and there is no defense. It's a courtesy resignation. You know, many people might have just played pawn takes the bishop and let Black demonstrate what he's going to do, but it's pretty clear what he's going to do. He's going to give a checkmate down here pretty quick, or at least end up with an incredible amount of material. So it was a good game by Black. White survived the Budapest and had a decent game, and if Black got too sack happy, then White could have maybe even won this. So good game by both players, and I thank you for taking the time to watch it, and I look forward to making another video soon. Take care.